looking for volunteers. We don't have.
Hey, morning guys. Welcome to Drupalcamp, Florida. My name is Steve, and I'm going to be talking about writing a book using open source tools. It's not specifically a Drupal presentation, more of an open source presentation, although we did use this to write a ton of different Drupal books. This is the process we use to get our Drupal books online. And also, I'm interested in learning from you guys and picking your brains. Already some of you have come up to me and talked about writing books yourselves. Interested in the processes that you use as well. How many of you guys have written a book before? Okay, 2. How many of you guys are interested in writing a book? Okay, so most of the room, they're curious. Okay, so hopefully you'll be able to get something out of it. I am based down here in Sarasota, just a couple of hours away. I can drive home this evening. I'm close enough to do that. But as you can tell from my accent, I'm not born and bred in Florida. From England originally, moved here, time goes quickly. Moved here about 13 years ago now. I lived in Georgia for a long time, rather than Florida, and I have a family now that's split between England and the US. I have an American side to my family that all seem to think that living in England is like having tea with the Queen, extending your little pinky finger the whole time. And I have the British side of my family that all think that living in the South is like living in Gone with the Wind, with big colonnade pillars outside your house. My grandparents used to watch Gone with the Wind in the 80s on these on VHS tape, and they'd sit there for like 3 hours. One VHS tape, second, third, fourth. I mean, the movie's like 3 hours long and needed like 4 VHS tapes to run. They were obsessed with Gone with the Wind. So when I moved to Georgia, they thought I was living in some romantic fantasy of theirs. Unfortunately, the reality of living in England and in the South is a little different. Where I come from in England is famous for soccer hooligans, and where we lived in Georgia was famous for UGA, and also famous for the movie Deliverance, if you remember the guy playing the banjo and chasing them down the river. That was pretty much where we lived. Lived in Georgia about 10 years, and if you put a few beers inside me, I can try and put on a Georgia accent, but it's still not that good after all these years. And about 3 years ago, we moved from Georgia down here to Florida. I try and fit in with the locals. I try and become a Florida man, but no matter how crazy I act, I can never quite catch up with the locals down here. And you know what? Florida men are famous, but Florida kids are pretty bad too. I'm worried about my kids growing up in Florida, what they're going to be getting into when they get older. I was a high school teacher for a long time. Worked as an English teacher. I even taught American history for a little bit. That was a particularly bad school. Hey, let's find the English guy and get him to teach American history. And I worked for a few years as a Drupal developer too, and I've kind of ended up combining my 2 careers. Been a regular high school teacher, I've been a developer, and now we mainly focus on developer training. We write books. These are some of the current books. There's a whole stack more, and the presentation today is really on the limitations and the limitations of the old processes that we use to publish books, and how we've managed to make it much more efficient and cheaper as well to get these books out. We've written about obviously Drupal 8, Drupal 7, MySQL, Joomla, Magento, WordPress. We have books coming on Shopify, accessibility, a whole bunch of web-related topics. And the key point that I'm going to try and get across today is that writing a book is much less scary than it used to be. Those of you guys that have written a book, we had a couple of hands up when I asked if someone had written books before. Did you guys self-publish or did you go with a publisher?
Both.
Both. What was your experience like working with a publisher?
The only guys that are going to make money through publishers have last names like King or Grisham.
Yeah.
It's really hard to go through a publisher unless you've got a really good idea.
Yes, the publishers are in it for them. There's never any money left at the end for the author. In the old days, there were two different options, and you could use a publisher or you could self-publish. And for about 5 years, when we were getting started, we went through a big publisher, just about the biggest publisher there is. We had contracts with Pearson, the big education publisher, and it was really painful. If you were working with a publisher, we would be selling a book like this, a book that would be 400 pages long. The book would be retailing for about $30, and we would be getting, well, anyone want to guess what the author would get from a $30 book?
50 cents.
50 cents?
25 cents. 10 cents.
Pretty close to 10 cents. Pretty close to 10 cents on a $30 book. If you ever hear those stories of people going to Hollywood and the Hollywood accounting, well, publishers have publisher accounting too, and they can make the money vanish pretty quickly. Plus, the actual writing and publishing processes were painful. It basically would involve millions of Word documents going back and forth. Their idea of version control was a Word document which was chapter 3, X4 323 underscore 034. Wait, no, you have the wrong document. Don't you have chapter 3 underscore 0468? No, I'll spend the whole day writing in the wrong Word document. They have archaic accounting systems. They don't make you any money. They have archaic publishing processes. And even after you go through all the pain of publishing a book, it would often just sit there for years. They would never let you update it. And for us, at least, working in a platform like Drupal, which now updates every 6 months, and there's often all sorts of minor changes to modules, it was not good enough to keep your fingers crossed for a book update every 3 years. So, generally, we came to the conclusion after about 5 years that publishers would screw you if you worked with them. And if you were self-publishing, well, those of you guys that self-published, did you actually order books yourselves, or did you go through Amazon? How did you guys approach the self-publishing?
I just did the online, just ebooks only through Lulu.com.
Okay. Lulu is it Amazon? Owned by Amazon now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I took a little bit different approach. I did e-publishing, but I got an author signing event at a bookstore, and what I learned is that they have to have physical copies of the book, like Barnes and Noble, and you can get paperback books printed pretty cheap, but it has to be somebody in Barnes and Noble's supply chain, and it's still possible to get them printed pretty cheap.
But pretty cheap. How much would it cost to self-publish a book?
Probably $3-4 a copy.
Okay.
And
So you'd have to put the cash up front to
yeah,
do the print run.
Yeah, you generally get, they want 300.
Okay, so you'd have to put down $1,000 basically in order to do a print run of your book.
Yeah, and then you have to take the returns when they don't sell them, so you end up with copies of your book.
Yes, that's basically what I'm talking about when it comes to the old way of self-publishing. That people would used to have to get their book officially formatted. They'd have to pay a graphic designer to get the PDF bleed and to get everything looking perfect, and they'd have to call up a printer and maybe get 100, 500, 1,000 copies of their book that would often end up sitting in a corner of their garage for years because they couldn't get rid of it. This thing isn't being videoed, right? Oh, no. Okay. In that case, I can tell a little story that my sister married a guy in England who comes from an interesting family, shall we say, and his father had saved up about $30,000 over the years and put it in a bank account. And one day his son, my brother-in-law, went and asked him what he was doing with it. He said, "Well, I'm going to saving up $30,000 to self-publish my book. I need to order all the copies." And literally 5-10 years ago, you would have to put down a big chunk of cash to self-publish your books. He wanted to self-publish his version of the Bible. He thought he was Jesus. He was a little nuts, and he literally wanted to buy $30,000 worth of his book, sit them in the garage, and go around and hand them out one by one. That's pretty much the way that self-publishing used to work in those days. You'd have to put down a large whack of cash, get the books, and manually push them out one by one. You guys have already mentioned a few names, so Lulu, Amazon. Everything is a lot less, there's a lot less friction these days in order to get your book out. If you have a book idea that you're thinking about, I think you can do it for $0 down, and you can test and you can iterate and you can try different things. The whole process is actually, I hesitate to use this word, fun. It's actually fun and efficient to publish a book in 2018, which it never ever was before. So the way that we have ended up publishing books is by using two different tools. We use one called Pressbooks, and we use a service that Amazon has called KDP. Amazon, I believe, has several of these different self-publishing services. Lulu was the one that most people may have come across a few years ago. They also had one called CreateSpace as well, that was popular for a few years. But now they are pushing people towards Amazon KDP. All of these are published instantly by Amazon. If someone orders a copy, Amazon will just fire up their printers, they'll run off a fresh copy and ship it to people in a couple of days.
So it's on demand?
Yes. Yeah, 100% on demand. And the number one item on this list, Pressbooks, solves one of the other problems we had with self-publishing originally, was that it was actually painful to do the initial PDF, the design. We would often have to go and hire a graphic designer for $2,000 or $3,000 to get the formatting, to get the bleed, to get the book cover design, to get everything right. Pressbooks makes the writing and the export part of this really easy for us. So we do all our writing in a service called Pressbooks. We hit the export button and then upload to Amazon KDP, where they take care of the self-printing and the shipping for us.
So you can update whenever you want.
Exactly. If we wanted to update 5-10 times a week, we could do that. Yeah.
How does Pressbooks handle versioning?
Does it handle?
Versions.
Oh, I'm glad you asked. Okay. So you might have guessed from the name that it's WordPress related. And this is where the open source tools come in. The Pressbooks is actually on GitHub. It's a WordPress plugin that you can download and you can install for free on a WordPress multi-site. The instructions are, it's not quite as simple as just installing a normal WordPress plugin. You need to install a theme and a couple of libraries as well. But technically it's not that complicated to install it on the WordPress site. And so you can run this whole system yourself. They also have, oh bless you, they also have a website at Pressbooks.com, which is basically a SaaS, a hosted version of this. And that's what we use to collaborate on some of our books. So we have quite a few of these books were written with co-authors. The co-author would be sitting in Denver or sitting in Chicago, and they'd be editing it along with us. Got a couple of people in this book, and everything is done through basically a WordPress interface. You can write the book here, and this is the introduction to our Drupal 8 book. So I'm not sure if you saw, but a few days ago they moved the White House website over to WordPress. They moved it off Drupal and over to WordPress, and so we had to come in this chapter. Yeah, he's done worse things.
I'm sure he will do even worse. I'm sure he's totally involved. That was good.
So we had to come in here, and the White House website used to be a pride of place in our introduction to Drupal clients, and so we had to edit it out, and we replaced it with the official Drupal website for Germany instead. And so it makes it super easy to upload images, to write inside here. We used some other tools before. There's one, there were some ebook writing tools. Scrivener is a popular one. We found that our authors could never get their heads around Scrivener very easily. It's
really complex.
Yes, it's a beast of a program. So we actually just write in WordPress now, and because of that, you end up with features such as revisions, so you can automatically scroll back and see what's changed.
This is your own WordPress distro?
No, it is possible to have your own WordPress distro of Pressbooks. In this case, I'm showing the SaaS, the hosted version.
Of Pressbooks?
Yes, of Pressbooks. So in this case, maybe we fixed a comma. You can see the versioning system there, and everything is basically done through an open source interface. And they have a variety of pre-formatted themes as well. Different fonts, different colors, different styles. And this is where we saved a couple $1,000 on the graphic design each time. That you can just scroll through, you can choose a particular design for your book. And then they have an export option, where it will automatically generate the EPUB file, the .mobi file, the PDF for you. And so rather than have to go through a graphic designer who cuts and slices it every time, and if you've done this before, the process can be painful. If you add extra pages to your book, often then you have to redesign the cover to a different size, because a bigger book is going to require a slightly different
Or signatures.
Yeah. Does it all for us. Takes care of everything for us. And here, when we're ready to export, it'll do the Mobi, the EPUB, and the PDF version for us. Okay.
Can you upload a design and will it do it for you?
Yes.
Custom design.
Oh, actually, most of the time, if we're sending it to Amazon, we do the PDF export, and then there is a bit of manual work involved. We'll often take it to like Adobe Acrobat, and we'll add the cover in. I think I'm right in saying that Pressbooks does the cover for the EPUB and the Mobi automatically, but the PDF still requires a bit of covering.
You know, as a designer, I'm like fascinated by this because I can't possibly imagine this workflow being in InDesign or any Adobe tool, but with the version control. But the question is, like, if I were creating a book, I'd probably be doing tables, diagrams, that sort of stuff separately,
Yeah.
bringing it in. Is there a way in your workflow to blend PDFs and blend diagrams in Pressbooks?
Yeah, you would need to probably, if you had a diagram, could you turn it into like a JPEG or PNG format?
Does it take SVGs?
I don't think WordPress takes SVGs, unfortunately.
Okay.
Yeah, so it would need to be in a WordPress acceptable format. But our books are very image heavy, and it works great. Yeah, we do lots of tables, lots of diagrams. We just turn them into image formats.
Does Pressbooks push you to be accessible with that? And does it like force you to put alt text for your diagrams and your images?
It doesn't.
Sort of thing?
It doesn't. Yeah.
And Amazon will also put it on Kindle for you?
Oh yes, sends it to Kindle automatically. And then if you do an update, it'll send the update to the Kindle readers automatically.
Table of contents?
Oh, that's actually a limitation. It does, well no, indexes are limitations. It does do tables of contents automatically for you.
Index, I can just,
Yeah. They're working on an indexing feature, but not available yet.
Do we have a client for this? Like WordPress has some client, but does any of those works here?
So a client?
Yeah, a client program so you can work offline.
Oh well, it's basically a WordPress install. So you could take it and put it on MAMP or WAMP or any kind of local server, and you could just run it on your desktop like you run a local WordPress site.
In that case, it will be either local or online. There's some, I think in the WordPress, you have WordPress app that you can, I don't know if you
just work, right?
Should work. Yeah, should just work. Yeah. We go with the online version to collaborate with authors more easily, but you could make it entirely local and just make it a little desktop app to do your writing on your laptop. Yeah. Okay, so our process is to do all the writing in Pressbooks. We end up with, this is what, a 45,000 word book. Export it, and then if you've never used Amazon KDP before, it's really pretty nice. It allows you to see your reports on your books, to upload and manage your books all from a single interface, and they don't take too much of the money either. I mentioned originally that we were getting 10 cents a book for books that were going through an official publisher. It's much closer to 50-50 now. That Amazon will charge 50% for the self-publishing and the paper, but if we sell a book for $20, I think we can often keep $10, which is vastly better than going through a publisher.
Or 50 cents, let's say.
Yeah. So you can get sales reports from inside. Hey, we made 133 Indian rupees, 816 Japanese yen. Being Amazon, they will send your book to all the different Amazon stores. So someone sitting in Perth in Australia can order your book and automatically get it self-printed and sent to them. Someone in India can do the same thing.
So
Oh, sorry. Go
Yeah, go ahead.
ahead.
so there the the books will be printed and made to order, or do you have to pre-stock them?
No, that's the good thing about it. Literally, if you upload a fresh copy at 9 a.m. and someone orders at 9:01, they'll get the fresh copy. There's no pre-ordering, it doesn't cost you a cent.
Okay.
Yeah.
On the Kindle, is it 50% for a Kindle book?
You know what? I think it is. My wife does the math, and it does vary according to price. So basically, Amazon will charge, I think, like $8. So we charge 20. So there's like a $10 margin there, $10, $11. If you charge more like $50, then Amazon charges more. Basically, the ratio, how much you make, depends on the price to some extent. There's some slight Amazon math in there. 50/50 is the guide I give people, but it does depend on the actual price you put on it.
So if it's just a Kindle book, it's still 50/50.
Good question. I should, next time I do this presentation, I'll get some hard numbers for that. And maybe, depends on the number of pages you're printing as well. But that wouldn't come into play with Kindle.
So when you're using KDP, do you have the ability to create both at the same time?
Oh,
Kindle and
yes.
print?
That's a good thing about it. So we will upload the PDF, and Amazon will automatically send the book to the Kindle store, automatically send it to printers if need be for the paperback copy. It does both. Yeah.
The books also get sent to Apple Store.
No, you'd have to set up a separate account and process for iBooks.
You almost have to publish a separate book. Because if you, well, I don't know if they still do it. If you use the Apple platform, you're not allowed to sell it on Amazon. Or at least you want.
You know, we have never published on Apple yet. And I didn't realize they were quite that restrictive.
Oh yes, Apple. They're like Amazon. They work in the world.
So you just write you just produce a different version of the book.
Different naming, different.
No, you just revise the book
Okay.
so that it's not exactly the same as the Amazon book, and you sell it on through iTunes or however.
Okay.
Just include all that.
Okay. I should tackle that and come back next time I do this presentation. Talk about, we haven't done iBooks, but we need to do it this year. Okay, and one of the great things about the process, and the process we use is Pressbooks, then Amazon KDP, is that you keep complete ownership of it. If you go through a publisher, they own the book, and in 2018, there's a ton of ways in which you can use and monetize the book. We make money from selling the book on Amazon. We make money from selling the book on our site. People can buy and download. We make money from sponsorships. There's companies like GoDaddy will sponsor the books. You can offer it as a marketing automation download. And the companies that we work with, they really appreciate that. Hey, you sign up for GoDaddy's newsletter, you get a free copy of the WordPress book. Not just a crappy ebook that some marketing person has put together, but an actual valid resource. Works really well for marketing automation. We will sometimes slip some of the software products we make in our books as well. So we can use it to market some of our own products too. We can use the books for giveaways. Hey, sign up for our newsletter or our competition. Like today, if you come to our table, we're giving away a copy of all the books if you give us your email address. We use them in YouTube videos. YouTube will rank a video based on the number of comments often, or rank your channel based on the amount of interaction. So we'll do a video giving away books if you leave a comment. Suddenly there's a video with 500 comments, and Those are just some ideas that we're coming up with, but the actual benefit of having a book that you've created and you've owned is pretty substantial in 2018. You can do all sorts of things with it. So you write the book, and you can use it for marketing, you can make money from selling it, all sorts of avenues open up to you if you have a good book that people want to read. We use training marketing as the name for what we're doing some training and doing some marketing at the same time. But I think the key takeaway is that writing a book used to be a awful process. I used to joke that most of the people I knew had written a book once, and none of them had ever written a book a second time. They all, every single person that wrote a book 5-10 years ago hated the process so much they never went back a second time. In 2018, tools are out there, open source. You can write and publish a book for free these days. No money down. You own the book afterwards. Hey, it's actually fun.
Google has a book tool also. You can write books on Google.
Okay.
Book Creator. Have you ever worked with that?
No, you can actually write the book in Google's tool.
Yes, they have a book creator tool there. Anything Amazon does now, Google is getting into it.
Is it a like a kind of Google Docs style writing interface, or?
Somebody told me about it the other day that he was doing books in Google and stuff like that.
Huh.
And I was wondering also video books, a combination of videos and books. So let's say you are showing, this is how this program works, and then you can see a screen and press it and actually see somebody doing it on a screen. Because if you look at, YouTube is a search engine.
Mm-hmm.
When I want to fix something on my car, I don't even go to Google. I just, YouTube it and can see it happen. So for visual learners, and I wonder if there is some kind of a tool that combines writing with video.
There is a journal of virtual experiments, I think is the name, but yeah, it's been tried in scientific publishing, and the cost of video production is much higher, so it's a different writing style.
Yeah. And you also write different for video than you write for. But it might help in some areas. When you see something done.
Yeah.
Then actually having to go and.
We were a primarily video company for several years.
Yeah, Joe.
Joe?
Yeah.
Okay.
They had to. They started open access, and they had to actually charge because of the need to have. They had to have crews go out and help people make the videos. So.
Yeah, video. We did thousands of videos over the last few years, and it's kind of painful and expensive, particularly when updates come frequently. And we were kind of a Lynda-style video platform for several years, and we still do a lot of videos, but books are easier to update and maintain and create, and so there's some real benefits to them.
Have you looked at Gitbook at all?
A second?
Gitbook?
Gitbook? No, tell me about it.
You write in Markdown and then use Git for your version control.
Is that the kind of thing you would send to LeanPub or somewhere?
Gitbook.com, I believe, is the site.
So would you, is it kind of set up for software people to document their products and easily push out the documentation in Markdown to...
Originally, but I know a good amount of people, including myself, that have written books in it.
Ah, okay, so you have a published book using Markdown?
Not published yet.
But almost
Not shopping, but yes.
Okay.
How would you export?
Right now, there's a built-in exporter for HTML, and there's other plugins and things that they're bringing around for PDF or whatever.
I guess if you do that, you could potentially write documentation and make it available perhaps as a download at the same time.
Yes.
Say, hey, here's our documentation on the website. Here's the documentation available as a PDF. Download it too.
The only real gap in it is that there's not really a lot of room for like a designer to come in. It does support, theming and everything you can do with HTML.
Yeah.
But when you're designing, for print, it's a little bit different. The biggest benefit though is authors love writing in it because it's better than like latex or anything like that.
Or text.
Yeah.
What kind of authors?
Do you need a few steps to actually get it into a print-ready PDF then?
Yes.
Okay. So perhaps a little better for people doing documentation, a little bit of work on the printing end, but makes it much easier to put on the website, for example.
Yeah.
Cool.
I would definitely love to hear if anyone else has used it, and actually gone through the printing process that they've had to work with.
Anyone come across that before?
So I've seen a lot of books written on it, but like user manuals. And then just online links to that where they embed it in their website with a link to it.
Yeah, I mean, developers love Markdown, right? They love writing in Markdown, love using it. Yeah.
Get it. So
Yeah.
versions ideal.
So the Pressbooks, when you're using the online versions, they cost money.
There's
The free one should.
Yeah.
And there's a one-time charge on the Pressbook for $10 to get their watermark off. But if you don't mind the watermark, it's good.
Or just set up your own website.
Yeah.
Yeah, they run as. We did a podcast with them a few weeks ago. They basically run as a non-profit corporation. I forget the technical term. A public benefit corporation. So they don't make much money. They charge like $20 to do the export without the watermark, and that keeps them going, keeps the service going. Yeah.
So did you mention, you were saying that it'll take the cover design from the template you're using, or you said you'll have to upload the cover to the PDF?
That's still a point of friction, at least for the PDF. The cover design, Pressbooks has an automatic cover generator for the EPUB and the Mobi version. So if you just have a cover designed, you can upload it and it'll work perfectly. However, they haven't figured out how to do that for PDFs, I don't think. So the process that my wife will use is to download the PDF, open up Adobe Acrobat, and insert the cover there, and then send it to Amazon. So it's a little bit of a pain, a little bit of a friction, but it's not too difficult.
Is there a tool that you use to create your covers, or like a template?
Oh, we do pay a designer for that.
Oh, you just pay a designer?
Yeah.
There are services they're sort of like logo services. You give them money and they'll give you 4 or 5 cover designs.
You go on Fiverr or one of those design websites, $50 they could do a good cover. Yeah. Cool. All right. Any more questions?
What's your editing process like?
My wife.
Editor.
She was an English teacher. She used to edit essays at school. Now she edits my books.
Yeah, they'll always find something wrong with what you're doing, so that
Yes. We fight between British and American grammar and commas. Yeah. She spent like 2 hours going through and removing all my commas.
Non-technical question.
Okay.
How do you finish your book?
Finish? In terms of how do I actually get it published?
No, like you writing, and you have blog, and then how you get through it and finish writing.
Like, how do I force myself to?
Yeah, kind of.
You know what? The way I try and treat it like a software project, like we've been talking about Git a few times. I will often put a book on Amazon where only 100 pages are written, and then I'll just keep updating it. We'll call it like the beta version on Amazon, then a release candidate, then the stable version. One of the lessons I guess I learned from working with an old-fashioned publisher was that getting to a point where the book is finished and stamped is painful and hard to do. So we just treat it like software. Here's the alpha, here's the beta, here's the release candidate. Just every few weeks put out a new version, keep improving it.
So it is visible to public at that point, right, when you do the beta or not?
It is. So we will, okay, so an example of a book in progress might be our Magento one. Normally we'll sell books for, normally we'll sell them for like $20. This one is on sale for $9.
Okay, right there.
Yeah, this book is in beta form. Yeah,
But it's a paperback, so I would imagine like the books that you have that are in beta would be like in Kindle format or something, so that you can revise it easily and send out updates. Maybe you send out updates on the paperback.
You can't. That's why it's cheap.
I see.
That's why it's $9 as opposed to
$20.
$20. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. But yeah, if people buy the Kindle, then they do get the
Automatic updates.
and doing this, we haven't had any Magento reviews yet, but it by releasing early, we'll get reviews, and I feel bad for anyone actually the people that are buying this book, but by putting it on early, it actually rises up the Amazon rankings. So this half-finished book I have on Magento is now number 2 on Amazon for Magento.
Oh, very nice.
So releasing it early, people buy it, it rises up the rankings, and so when we officially release it, it should start to sell pretty well.
And you get feedback on those early versions.
Exactly. Yeah.
Is the return still close to 50%?
Oh, for this one, good point. We're probably only making a couple of bucks on the book at this point. Yeah. But we can print it off and we can bring it to events like this to show people. And, yeah.
That's the paperback.
Yeah, so that's,
finished book.
you can tell it's
Quite thinner, yeah.
I got some work to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So do you include something in the book explaining your process and how the person can give feedback?
We do. So we were talking about, say, the index and the table of contents in there. On like the third page, for example, we explain how we update it, and we apologize in advance. Yes, there's no index. Okay, because we had a few people complaining about lack of an index, and now we proactively say on like the third page, this is why we do what we do, this is why there's no index as a result. Apologies in advance.
So how do you index it once you?
We haven't solved the indexing problem yet. So there's no index at the back of the book. Yeah. Hopefully this year maybe we'll solve that. Maybe Pressbooks will solve it for us. Yeah. They say they're working on it.
Paying somebody to do it manual is tough.
Yes. Yeah. Plus we update the book so the page numbers will change, and yeah. Cool. All right, guys. Thank you very much indeed for coming. I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your time at Drupalcamp. We'll be out there just at the table in the hallway. If you want to come up and chat.
You have any business cards?
I do. Just at the table.
Okay.
Cool. Thanks, guys. Have fun today.
Burge only knew what he started.
This is pretty much solved a huge problem.
Never made a buck out of it.